How to escape the void. There is a place between who you were and who you are becoming. It's not a good place. It's not a bad place. It's just nothing. The things that used to excite you don't anymore. The goals that used to drive you feel hollow. You wake up and the day stretches out in front of you like a gray, empty road to nowhere. You are not depressed. At least not in the way you thought depression worked. You can function. You go through the motions. But something fundamental has shifted. The old you is dying. And the new you hasn't been born yet. This is the void. And if you are in it right now, this is for you. Derek was 31 when it hit him. On paper, he was winning. Sales manager at a tech company. $140,000 a year. Nice apartment. Good car. The kind of life his college self would have been impressed by. He was driven. Competitive. The guy who always hit his numbers. Who always wanted to be at the top of the leaderboard. Money, status, winning. That was the fuel. Then one morning, he woke up and felt nothing. Not sad. Not happy. Just empty. He figured it was burnout. He had been grinding hard. Took a week off. Went to Miami. Sat on the beach. And felt absolutely nothing. Came back worse. The things that used to fire him up, closing a big deal, hitting quota, getting recognized, they just felt pointless. Like playing a video game after you realize the points don't matter. He started asking questions he had never asked before. Why am I doing this? What is the point? Who even am I without the job title and the paycheck? What do I actually want? Not what I was told to want. What do I want? He didn't have answers. Just more questions. And a growing sense that he was losing his mind. Video games used to be his escape. Now they felt like a waste of time. Going out with friends felt exhausting. Even food tasted gray. Nothing hit the same. One night at 2 a.m., he typed his symptoms into Google. Lost motivation. Nothing feels real. Old self dying. The first result was about spiritual awakening. He clicked. And for the first time in months, he felt seen. The dark night of the soul. The dissolution of the ego. The space between identities where everything you thought you were falls away, and you are left with nothing but the question of who you actually are. This wasn't burnout. This was something deeper. Something was dying inside him. And it needed to die, but knowing what it was didn't fix it. He was still stuck. Still floating. Still lost in the void. Here is what Derek eventually figured out. The void is not the problem. The void is the space between timelines. Think about it like this. You were living in one reality. One timeline. With one version of yourself running the show. Motivated by certain things. Driven by certain goals. Operating on a certain identity. Then that identity started breaking down. The old operating system crashed. And now you are between realities. You left the old timeline, but you haven't chosen a new one yet. You are floating in the space between. No coordinates. No destination. No direction. Of course you feel lost. You are lost. Not broken. Not crazy. Just locationless. The void feels endless because you have no reference points. No markers. Nothing to move toward. Derek realized he didn't need therapy. He didn't need another vacation. He didn't need to fix himself. He needed a destination. Here's what he did. First, he stopped trying to go back. The old Derek was dead. The guy motivated by status and money and winning for the sake of winning. That guy served his purpose. Got him to 31. Built some skills. Made some money. But that fuel source was empty now. Trying to reignite, it was like trying to restart a car with no gas. Pointless. He needed new fuel, which meant he needed a new destination. So he asked himself the question, if I could design my life from scratch, what would it actually look like? Not what sounds impressive. Not what would make his parents proud. Not what his friends were doing. What did he actually want? And when he was honest, really honest, it wasn't complicated. He wanted freedom. Not just money, but actual control over his time. He wanted to build something of his own. Not make someone else rich. Create something that was his. He wanted to feel strong again. Not jacked for Instagram. Just capable. Athletic. Energetic. And he wanted to learn something just for the joy of it. No ROI. No career benefit. Just pure curiosity. That was the target timeline. Now he needed coordinates. Here is how reality works. Every life, every single human life, optimizes across 3 pillars. Health, wealth, happiness. Nobody argues with this. It's not a philosophy. It's just how it is. Everything you want falls into one of these 3 buckets. So Derek looked at his target timeline and pulled out one specific goal for each pillar. Not vague intentions. Specific coordinates. Triggerable events that either happen or they don't. For health, he wanted an athletic achievement. Something that would prove he had rebuilt his body and his discipline. He chose complete a sprint triathlon. Swim 750 meters. Bike 20 kilometers. Run 5 kilometers. Back to back. No stopping. He couldn't swim more than a few laps. Hadn't been on a bike in years. Running felt impossible. Perfect. That was the point. The coordinate is the destination, not the starting line. For wealth, he wanted a business milestone. Something that would prove he could build something of his own. He chose build a paid newsletter to 500 subscribers paying $10 a month. 5,000 in monthly recurring revenue from something he created. From knowledge in his head turned into value for others. For happiness, he wanted a creative side quest. Something with no purpose other than joy. He chose learn to play chess well enough to beat his dad. His dad taught him chess as a kid. He was never good. His dad always won. There was something about finally winning that match that felt like closure. Like becoming his own man. 3 coordinates. Health, wealth, happiness. Now the GPS had an address. And here is where something shifted. Once the coordinates were clear, Derek could suddenly see who lived there. The version of himself at that destination. The one who completed the triathlon, who had 500 paying subscribers, who finally beat his dad at chess. That Derek woke up different. Trained in the morning because he wanted to. Wrote his newsletter because he had something to say. Played chess in the evening because it was fun. That Derek wasn't driven by status or money. He was driven by the game itself. The joy of improvement. The satisfaction of progress. That was the mentor. Not a fantasy. A projection. The version of himself waiting at those coordinates. But here's the thing about destinations. You do not teleport there. You drive. And driving requires knowing what actually creates movement. So Derek identified the driving factors. The one lever for each pillar that would actually move the needle. For the triathlon, the driving factor was training hours. Not just running or just swimming. Total time spent training across all 3 disciplines. He set a target. 100 hours of training over 90 days. A little over an hour a day. Broken across swimming, biking, and running. For the newsletter, the driving factor was editions published. You cannot build an audience if you do not publish. Consistency beats perfection. He set a target. 24 editions over 90 days. Twice a week. Every Tuesday and Friday. For chess, the driving factor was games played. Not tutorials watched. Not books read. Actual games against actual opponents. He set a target. 90 games over 90 days. 1 game per day. Win or lose, just play. Now Derek understood something critical. The reason he had been stuck in the void was not lack of motivation. It was lack of calibration. There is a concept in psychology called flow state. The mental zone where you are completely absorbed in what you are doing. Time disappears. Self-consciousness fades. You are just in it. Flow happens under specific conditions. The task has to be challenging enough to require your full attention, but not so challenging that you get frustrated and quit. Too easy and you get bored. Too hard and you rage quit. The sweet spot is right at the edge of your ability. This is why video games are addictive. They are engineered to keep you in flow. The difficulty scales with your skill. Always challenging. Never impossible. Derek realized his old life had lost flow. His job was too easy. He had mastered it. There was no growth edge anymore. Just repetition. No wonder he was bored. And his vague goals of get healthier and start a business were too undefined to create flow. There was no clear target. No way to know if he was winning or losing. The coordinates fixed this. A sprint triathlon was hard. Really hard for someone who couldn't swim. But not impossible. Right at the edge of his ability. 500 paying subscribers was ambitious. But achievable with consistent effort. Right at the edge. Beating his dad at chess required real improvement. But it was a bounded goal. Learnable. Achievable. Right at the edge. Every coordinate was calibrated to create flow. To keep him engaged. To make the process itself rewarding, not just the outcome. Derek mapped out his first season. 90 days. 1 quarter. Enough time for real change. Short enough to maintain focus. He broke it down. Week by week, he knew what he needed to hit to stay on pace. About 8 hours of training. 2 newsletter editions. 7 chess games. Day by day, he knew exactly what to do. Monday swim and write. Tuesday bike and publish. Wednesday run and play chess. A rhythm. A structure. A game. The first week was brutal. He showed up at the pool and could barely complete 2 laps without gasping. He sat down to write his first newsletter and stared at a blank screen for an hour. He played his first chess game online and got destroyed in 12 moves. Everything was hard. Everything was awkward. The void was still there. But he did it anyway. Because he had coordinates now. He wasn't floating. He was driving. Week 2. Slightly less brutal. 3 laps without stopping. First newsletter published. Lost at chess, but lasted 20 moves. Week 3. Something shifted. He started looking forward to the pool. The blank screen felt less intimidating. He won his first chess game. The void was still there, but it was smaller. There were moments now. Glimpses of something that felt like aliveness. Week 6. Halfway. Derek swam 400 meters without stopping. His newsletter had 89 subscribers, 12 of them paying. He beat a player rated higher than him for the first time. He looked in the mirror and saw someone different. Not physically, although that was changing too. Something in his eyes. The deadness was lifting. Week 9. The home stretch. He completed his first practice triathlon. All three disciplines back to back. Slow and ugly but complete. His newsletter hit 340 subscribers, 61 paying. He was winning more chess games than he was losing. More importantly, he felt something he hadn't felt in almost a year. Excitement. For the next day. For the next challenge. For his own life. Day 90. Derek stood at the start line of his first official sprint triathlon, surrounded by people in serious gear. Feeling like an imposter. The horn went off. He dove in. The swim was chaos. Bodies everywhere. He swallowed water. Panicked for a second. Then found his rhythm. The bike was pain. His legs burned. He wanted to quit. Kept pedaling. The run was a blur. One foot in front of the other. Don't think. Just move. He crossed the finish line in 1 hour 47 minutes. Not fast. Not impressive to anyone watching. But he did it. He stood there, hands on knees, breathing hard, and realized he was crying. 6 months ago he couldn't get off the couch. Couldn't feel anything. Thought he was broken. Now he had just completed a triathlon. His newsletter had 523 paying subscribers. $5,230 in monthly recurring revenue. He had quit his job 2 weeks earlier. He beat his dad at chess for the first time ever. His dad smiled and said it's about time. But the numbers weren't the point. The point was that Derek wasn't Derek anymore. Not the old one. Not the hollow status chaser. And not the void dweller either. This Derek had coordinates. This Derek was in flow. This Derek was alive. The dark night of the soul was over. Not because he fixed himself. Because he stopped trying to fix the old version and built a new one instead. Here's what Derek learned. The void is not a problem to solve. It is a space to cross. You cross it by choosing a destination. By setting coordinates for a new timeline. By identifying the driving factors that create movement. By calibrating the difficulty to stay in flow. Health, wealth, happiness. 3 pillars. 3 coordinates. 1 triggerable event for each. The mentor is the version of you who lives at those coordinates. Your job is to become him. 1 season at a time. 90 days. That is all it takes to cross the void. To escape the space between timelines. To start living in a reality you actually chose. Derek thought he was broken. Turns out he was just between destinations. Same might be true for you. If you are in the void right now, if the old you is dying and you do not know who the new you is, this is your invitation. Stop trying to go back. Stop trying to fix what is already dead. The old fuel is empty. Let it go. Choose a destination. Pick coordinates for health, wealth, and happiness. Make them specific. Make them triggerable. Make them just hard enough to keep you in flow. Find your driving factors. The one lever for each pillar that actually creates movement. Do the math. 90 days. What does that break down to weekly? Daily? What do you need to do tomorrow? And start driving. The void is not your home. It is just the space between timelines. Cross it. Your new reality is waiting on the other side.